Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Nancy. Um, I, I'm pretty sure Adam Tullis said he could be here as well. So he'll, if he's like AJ though, they're running into a lot of construction and stuff. You know, AJ works for the county and Adam does similar type work with his company. This is a busy season for them, and so he may be working late as well. But let's see. So yeah, we're just missing 2 people. So we have a quorum. Are you guys okay with going ahead and getting started?
You
Yeah.
bet.
Okay.
Sure.
Hi, Adam. It's nice to actually put a face to your emails. I'm glad that you could be here.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to see you.
Yeah. So you guys, AJ sent as you know, an email just because he was tied up with work. And so I don't actually have, he had kind of a presentation planned and everything, but I'm aware of what we were going to talk about, but just bear with me because as Nancy has been in other committees that I have chaired, I'm not that great at it. So just be patient with me, but we'll at least hit the main points. But what we had on the agenda basically tonight was just to kind of review a general review of the strategic planning, what we need to do, the comprehensive plan, and also the survey. As any of you that have watched the board meetings are aware, this particular board is really not very supportive of being a party to any additional strategic planning more than what we've already done. So basically what they instructed us to do was that we should just do the work and bring back a report. So that's where we're at. The unfortunate part about that is if you've ever been involved in any kind of strategic long-term planning is if you do not have the decision makers, the main decision makers, involvement and buy-in, generally that plan will get put on the shelf, which is unfortunate. And let's hope that that's not going to happen in this case. And that with the community's involvement in what we put forward, that's really going to help move this forward as a true long-range plan, right? But I just feel like it would be unfair to you to, you know, when we started this budgeting and planning process in 2020, and we put it together in 2021. The intent of it was to create a sustainable plan using something similar. We're following the Growth Management Act as much as we can, the planning process, using the comprehensive planning process, the Open Public Meetings Act. You know, we're trying to mirror the county and the outside agencies as much as possible. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're going with already vetted, tried and true processes. You know, the goal of that was so that all of these plans would not just fall by the wayside if we got a new board majority or we got a new GM, that the association plan and budgeting would continue just like the county. We're generally with the county, if you get a new council elected, it's only the big items, right, that may fall by the wayside, but the regular operations and everything continue to run and following the strategy, the policies, and the mission basically of the county itself. And so that's the goal of this, is to create something that doesn't get derailed easily. And so, you know, that's our obligation to the association and the responsibility of this committee. That's why it was ever made a bylaw for us to be a long-range planning committee, because it, you know, as you guys know, the association has almost 8,000 residents. If we were a city, we would be well, I believe we'd be the 5th largest city in Whatcom County at this point. But we definitely are even run like a small town or small city or a municipality. And so it's real important that, you know, we put these sustainable pieces in place to for the long-term success of the community. That being said, so on the strategic planning part, primarily, you know, we'll kind of hold back on that a little bit while we work on the survey, because basically with the strategic plan, it's built into the budget kind of as that 10-year plan. That's our budgeting and capital planning. And so some of that's already there, it's already decided, et cetera. But we may want to review that, determine, is there something that needs to look a little different? Do we want to include anything into the budget and ask the community input on that? And then, so we're not going to finalize the strategic plan aspect that or our recommendation to the board until we actually finish the community survey. So, which brings me to the next part, which is the community survey. You guys have the draft survey, the foundational survey is already put together, and then it was built to be able to have a baseline. That most of those questions that were in there, we tried to. There's been a few good surveys over the history of Sudden Valley that were pretty good, that had some consistent questions. So when we did that survey in 2020, at the end of 2020, we used some version of those same questions, so we could still continue like those baselines. And then we added a few additional ones like performance, board performance, staff performance, roads, what do you think about the roads, that type of thing. But they're meant to be a consistent measurement of performance. And so the goal initially with that was that we would do it annually. What we found was a big survey like that is actually, to do that annually just isn't practical. If we had a system set up to where our members like had a number, for instance, and we have briefly talked with the general manager about this, where we just set up a type of portal where then we can, everybody's got their own identifier, and basically we could do, let's say, annually do a performance questionnaire in there, and people know, hey, like we could push it with the AGM or something like that, where we're really pushing for, everybody knows annually, I'm going to critique the board, I'm going to critique the GM or the staff, and I mean critique in a good way, right? Like how do, what's good, what's bad, how do we improve it, type of a situation. But that's something we need to work on, of how we're going to start implementing surveys that we can be responsive to. But the big needs assessment is just too large to do the way we did it every single year. So that's something that we kind of need to work on. Josh, you might have some suggestions on that too. Last time we did an online, and then we also mailed it out to every third home in each division, so that we got a true measure. What we found, once we were able to eliminate anybody that was kind of repeat answering the online survey, that there wasn't much difference between the responses online and the people that were responding by mail, except on the topics that were trending heavily on social media during that period. Those skewed the answers. There was a difference between the ones that were mailing it in and the ones that were replying online, but only on those items, only on the things that we knew measurably were being talked about currently on social media. Josh, do you have any thoughts about how to maybe?
Well, I think we need to back up just a little bit, because you're kind of giving everyone like a really big story of this. But I'm curious about the support of getting a survey out. Are we going to actually be able to do this, or we just, okay? So
I'm not getting any. What we have to do is we have to basically, as a committee, decide what we want to do, and then ask for the support, and we either get it or we don't. That's
okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I apologize, because it does sound like I'm giving a story, but I also feel like I need to explain why we're kind of what we were trying to do, and it is.
No, I understand. I understand. I'm just trying to hone it in a little bit. So our goal obviously is to make a survey, and how can we, we had questions from before. How can we, and I've got some questions I've written down per last meeting that we had. What can we do to facilitate this in order to, like, should we break up into groups based on like subject matter, or what's a way that we can say, okay, this is what we're going to do and we're going to go ahead and get it done regardless of, I'm not going to be concerned about, the politics behind this. I mean, I think people will have input on questions that are asked, and regardless of what goes on. But what can we do to actually get this process going as soon as possible? And I am going to stop talking because I'm sure Barbara has something more important to say than I do. So, but yeah, I just want to know, how can we catapult this into actual deliverables, and how do we start that?
So Barbara, you wanna,
Well, I have
Go
some questions about that as well. One, you guys did that survey in 2020, which was right before I moved here. I get the impression, and I could be wrong, because I can only go by information I see and is provided to me, that not much happened with that survey. And then, go ahead.
Well, a lot did happen. Actually, the strategic plan that was put into place in 2021. So we had strategic planning meetings with the board. The strategic planning team was made up of the board, long range planning committee, and our senior management team, all of our key staff. We redid the mission statement, redid the vision statement, we rewrote them, and then we came up with our strategic priorities. And the capital projects that have happened over the last 3 years all grew out of that community survey. Yeah.
And then my follow-up question is, didn't Keith in the board meeting like a month or two say that he doesn't care what the long range planning committee comes up with, that they're going to make a decision no matter what? So I guess I'm just wondering, how much hours do we as long range planning put into this if it's going to be completely dismissed? Now, I agree that we need community input, and I agree that it is important for us to do all this. I totally agree the background of all this and everything that you're saying. I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. I just, I'm hesitant to spend, let's say, 40 hours of my time on something that is going to be dismissed quickly and or made fun of and or spoken badly of by members who shall not be named. And then it just kind of makes a ridiculous, I don't even know if I'm speaking English at this point, but you get my gist, right? Like, I'm all about doing this, but at the same time, I'm very hesitant as well, because I just feel like people aren't taking us seriously.
And I'm gonna let Josh and Adam respond, but I will say that I have the same, I have a conflict like that too. I feel kind of disregarded, and I'm not I'm really disappointed where we are right now. But I feel like like you, the reason every one of you are here is we all love Southern Valley, right? And I feel like
I didn't mean to make you cry, Sonia.
You know what? I apologize. It just makes me really sad that this is where we are right now. And but I feel, and there's always those days where I don't want to do it, but then I think about everybody that does care and everybody that loves it, and why we're all here. And I keep hoping, well, things will change if we speak up and we're the voice. Then maybe it'll make a difference, right? Adam, I'll let you talk, and I'll quit right now.
So I've been kind of thinking about this a lot. I've been thinking about it from, I don't know, most of you know me, but I work in the land use consulting firm. I'm a private consultant. I have been for 20, I'm dating myself, but 20 to 30 years now. And I look at this and I look at some of the tasks we're talking about, and I am wondering, one, at what point do we draw the line to where we honestly, some of these tasks that we're looking at, I mean, and I'm maybe jumping ahead, but we're talking about comprehensive plan. If I were a city and I were to be saying, hey, I need a comprehensive plan, I guarantee there would be an RFQ out there for hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring in a consultant to do it. And so I am concerned when we start talking about tasking each of us individuals to do a comprehensive plan, because sure, I've got the skill level to do it, but I don't have the time or the energy to spend 40 hours a week in doing it because I work a full-time job. And guaranteed, if I'm going to be putting that much time into it, I probably want compensation. And I think that that's, I think that's something we maybe need to start thinking about, like directions, or not, well, suggestions. I don't know if you make directions to the board, but suggestions to the board that here's this task. If we need to have a comprehensive survey done, we need a comprehensive plan instead of, oh, okay, I can do this much, I can do this, because I guarantee I'm going to tell you that my time between now and November is at AJ's level or worse, just because I've got 6 projects going into construction. I've got several under it's just, when you're a consultant or you're working full time, it's a lot. And those of us that are working, still in that 40-hour week work week, we have to balance work-life balance. And so I think as we start looking into this, we need to be careful about how much we're actually committing ourselves to and what potentially maybe needs to be done at a professional level. And that may even, clear up some of the, the negativity about what we're doing, because then, if I've learned that the value of having a professional do something means you can go, instead of going, well, this is what the group of us decided, it's like, no, this is what this person that is a professional of this decided. And there's, I mean, not to say there's blame, but there's recourse of it other than all of us going, well, we didn't really know the direction, it could eliminate some of the uncertainty in what's being proposed.
Yeah,
And maybe
so-
that's been a bit of an issue in the past with, we've had, I've been involved with long range planning since, let's say 2018 or whenever it kind of started getting kicked up again. And there was a survey put together at that point. It was really small. It was weak. We talked about ones before. We've had several, but it seems like it doesn't matter which group puts it, but getting buy-in on the results and on the process is really tough. And it becomes where someone's put a lot of work into one thing and then it gets disregarded, and it just it opens it up to create more conflict and more uncertainty. And it seems like there are several, and it's the whole, even, when we talk about how we were having problems with having, we had the Parks and Trails Committee, and there was obviously some misguidance in that and stuff, because we had a group of volunteers who were passionate about parks and trails and wanting to get some stuff done, but the line was never drawn where this is hitting the level of we need professional help. And that's kind of where our line is, because it's like, in the end, sure, I've got years of planning history and engineering background and all this stuff, but I'm still just a citizen when it comes to this, because I'm not getting, it's like, I will use as much of my skills and knowledge as possible, but it's like there is a line drawn with the amount of effort that is going to be put in, because, well, shoot, if I'm gonna work overtime, I'm gonna get time and a half from work versus, yelled at the next committee meeting because, I wanted a popcorn machine.
Well, so let me reassure you about one thing about the.
Hey, Sonia,
yeah.
can
go
I
ahead.
just
I'm
add
sorry.
something real quick?
Yeah.
I think we should just baby step this and at least get a survey done. And I think as members of Sudden Valley, you all have an opportunity to ask questions that you might want to have input on from other people. And I think if we start there, start slow, don't worry about comprehensive plans or any of that kind of stuff. I think if we can nail down some good questions, we got the means to get it out there. If the board doesn't support it, the board doesn't support it. But at least we know that we've had our voices shared and other people potentially could see what those questions are. But I think if we start there, I don't want to invest in a lot of time. I think, when you guys did that previous survey, I thought it was really good. And I thought the turnout was really good based on other surveys in the past. The emergency preparedness did a survey before that. They only got like 400 or something things, but when you look at it, I mean, that's not, no offense, Barbara, or anyone else that's watching, that's not a field that a lot of people are like, yeah, man, emergency preparedness. It's just really not. And that's why it's been a hard thing for people to get behind that. But like that survey actually brought in a lot more people than what they thought happened. And even 400 out of this amount of people that we have, that's a good ratio. And then the long range planning survey brought in more than that. So I think if we can at least do our due diligence and come up with some good questions, use the other questions as a base, and start with baby steps there. I mean, I think that's good. And you know, I think the more that we can promote that survey getting out, and you know, obviously if it does get out, I don't want to kind of rail on board negative stuff because you know, regardless of what happens, people have agendas, and you can be as nice and as fruitful with all of your, you know, your camaraderie and, you know, olive branches. But when the agendas are there, it doesn't matter what happens. That's going to always be there. And I think we just need to do what we feel is right. And you know, I think people in the community want to be heard, and I think that's an easy way to let people be heard.
Yeah, and Nancy, I see your hand up. Let me just, well, I don't want to, I kind of want to say something real quick. So I get Adam's concern about the comprehensive plan. So we're not really talking about, I know, even though I talk about the GMA and the outline of the comprehensive plan, we're not talking about actually writing all those pieces. We're really talking about calling like references to Whatcom County, you know, where Whatcom County speaks about Sudden Valley in their comprehensive plan. We'll call those pieces, those items, and put it into our, you know, our documents and point to it. Same thing with where Lake Whatcom Water and Sewer makes references to Sudden Valley, that type of thing. So we're not going to try to overstep there. But the reason, the kind of that, and there is an outline for that already where, you know, a lot of those things have already kind of started to be plugged into it. But one of the things that kind of matters is that the bylaws actually are very specific about what our categories are, which fall very neatly into the comprehensive plan categories, and what our bylaws refer to as a community plan, which we're tasked to deliver, that we just instead called it a comprehensive community plan. And we were trying to align those two things to make sure that we actually were, like I said, not reinventing the wheel. We were trying to go with, you know, a documented, proven process, but not one. And I think in situations like what Adam's talking about, and also what you're talking about, Josh, what we ran into, right, is, I mean, it was really good. It was a good plan. It's been a good plan, and we saw it. I think in 2009 there was another group that put a really good plan together, but nothing happened with it. That's something maybe we need to work on this year too, is what type of policies need to be put in place to actually ensure this, because, you know, these plans will be put in place, or everybody will talk about it and they make recommendations, but there's, you know, other than the bylaws, there's nothing that ensures that there's any consistency to any of this. And maybe that's part of something that we need to think about. But I agree with you 100%, Josh, that the survey is the place to start and deal with those questions. We just need to make sure that we're kind of that we're hitting all of the kind of the topics that we're responsible for, so that we're actually delivering a real community plan. That's all. Nancy, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, I thought Josh's idea was excellent. And as far as I'm concerned, we have our survey project manager right there. Thank you, Josh. The other thing is, the survey is the only thing we can do. And get out there. Nobody is going to read a strategic plan we put out, and a comprehensive plan either. If we put out a survey and we ask some really hot button questions. And I can think of one on right off the top of my head that it's something like, the county collects over 450 grand a year out of Sudden Valley for the Lake Whatcom watershed stormwater fee. It's attached to your property tax bill and it's labeled as a fee, so you can't deduct it. But, you know, that's what it is. So far, the county has put less than $10,000 into Sudden Valley. The Marigold project was real estate excise tax money, so that doesn't count. That was set up at least 6 years ago. Just took a long time. Do you think that's fair that we haven't seen anything back? Because they are sitting, that fund is sitting on well over $1 million.
So the
What are
question,
they going to do with it? So far, the main money has gone to an Academy Road project where it's in the county, but the acreage is owned by the city of Bellingham. So I can think of a way to phrase that people will go, hell yes, I don't think that's right.
so keep in mind, that's one of the things that's real important, that when we do the survey, that we ask these questions in an unbiased way and not a leading way. So we have
Why?
there is very, yeah. very
Why
specific-
would we do that?
Because we're
We
trying
are behind and we are struggling to get attention and get ideas before the members. Why do we not push it a little?
Because then the board's really not gonna take it serious.
They're not going to
No.
take it anyway.
But
So
at least if
let's
we make
point
it
to
as
something.
unbiased as possible, we have a better chance. If we put any of our personal bias into it, you might as well just toss it out.
That's
the
not
window.
a personal bias. That's a statement of fact.
but,
All right,
but
well,
we
let's
can-
say
we can
5
write this-
questions for Nancy to come up with. And let's
I'll do it.
make sure that we hit the bases on everything else.
Well, I'm wondering how, because that is very much, Nancy, a problem that has rolled around in my head a lot is how can we have, 7,000 people, the tax base that we have, the fees that we're putting into stormwater, and we're struggling to get the attention and our fair share from the county. I mean, I can think of one major overlying reason, and that's community infighting. And nobody can deny that this community will, there are people that will choose to fight over if this is a rock or it's a stick. I mean, or if it's a rock or a twig. That was more to show how silly it is. But and all that energy, it's like I always want, it's like there's all this energy in this community to make it better. That's what I really truly believe, that even in all this infighting, all these people that have been at each other's throats over this or that for all longer, they're generally their intention is for the betterment of this community. Their visions may be different, but we're not getting anywhere as a community by continuing to go around in circles when really the target is sitting right there. It's called Whatcom County. I mean, and I don't know how we can frame survey questions to get people to understand that, or if those are just questions like, do you think that Whatcom County is treating Sudden Valley Fair as a community of this many people?
That's a good way.
I
I
mean,
like that.
can we ask, can we create some unbiased questions so people understand that? I mean, I still see on the social media pages, people see a problem on Lake Louise Road and they will ask why our maintenance isn't taking care of it. And, again, it's like, I feel like we have to re-educate people on, like, these are the boundaries of Sudden Valley, that's Whatcom County, it's not our realm. But it just seems like there's kind of a community, devoid of community knowledge in actually the way to move forward.
So one of the things, like when we're creating this community plan, that again, that's, again, comprehensive plan, but it's also the community plan, right? You know, part of that, we do have the ability to host focus groups and everything, which still I'm not ignoring the survey, Josh. But my point is on this particular item, like what you're talking about, because we would at least have the ability to hear what the community's concerns are, what needs to happen, and then make recommendations like, you know, we have attempted to put certain people in positions that we had hoped would develop those relationships with the county. You know, it's really difficult. It partially because it doesn't matter even if they have the skill set to do it. Once you're like doing your day-to-day job here within Sudden Valley, there's not enough hours in the day to then, you know, even try to develop those relationships, you know, so that's not a slam on any of these people. It's just, it's unrealistic. And maybe that's something we need to talk about too, of how can we do that? How do we develop that? I mean, Nancy sat on the Lake Whatcom policy group that, where, you know, the board had put her on that. And then Joanne is part of the, what's it called? Council of Governance. But the thing is, I don't think any of our GMs have ever attended any of those meetings. You know, so the couple of opportunities that are there, I don't think we utilize them correctly, and we don't build that relationship. I think you're totally right, Adam. But I think that would maybe something that we could help contribute to find a way to fix that. You know, I don't know what the answer to that is, but
I was on the panel that put together that stormwater thing. I applied to the county, and since it was late in the game, I was the only applicant. They took me. It was basically, we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to do it, and the rest of you be damned. It was, the county wanted money, and the city of Bellingham wanted the money from Sudden Valley. Because when you look at where it's been spent in Geneva, and it's been spent up on Academy Road. And the way I see it is Sudden Valley is funding Bellingham's urban growth areas infrastructure. Now, I don't know how we deal with that, because what sort of stroke do we have? When I look, it's administered by the county, it's not administered by the water district. So even though we're kind of gerrymandered out of any sort of controlling interest in the water district, we have 40% of the vote, but we pay 60% of their income, roughly.
So I think going back to what Josh is, I wasn't meaning to cut you off. I was trying not to stick just with the county, but going back to what Josh was talking about, I think this is a perfect example. I know we had asked kind of everybody to contribute some questions, and I think it was just a little too vague. I don't think anybody really, you know, was like, oh, I don't know, what questions should I put on that survey? But like, if we kind of start breaking these categories down, for instance, the county, that's something that Nancy, you and Adam and AJ have really unique perspectives on, where, you know, you've got a better idea than just the average Joe about how that needs to work, and where we, you know, you know what I'm saying? That's a good category where we could focus. So if maybe what we do is we spend, because this meeting's kind of in the middle of the month, and our next one's going to be just in 2 weeks, but we could via email break these categories down a little bit better, and then we kind of, you know, do task groups in each of them, because, you know, we've got issues with let's say trails. I'll use that as an example too, because at the end of last year the board voted for I think it's $35,000 or $32,000 to do a trails plan. But there's been a couple of comments saying that that those funds weren't going to be utilized. And the reason for that, it's not a wrong reason. It's just, I don't know, you know, we really need community input, I think, on this. But like, for example, you shouldn't spend money to put a plan together if you don't have the millions of dollars it's going to take to implement the plan. And so there's a reason why, it's a legitimate reason to not put that money into that. But we know repeatedly over every survey I've ever seen that mentions trails, that's one of the top priorities to the membership here, right? So instead of, we got a trail plan and it's going to cost us $8 million or $5 million, maybe we need to figure out what are the priorities and try to figure, you know, that's part of what we can utilize the survey for, is to determine those priorities, and that becomes that long range plan of how do we actually build that trail system out? What are you going to, and fund it?
Yeah, let me talk about the trail plan, because Sudden Valley was really platted out with interconnecting trails that went somewhere useful. And Sudden Valley still owns that acreage that would put it together, but it has been encroached on by adjacent homeowners. The big question on ever using it to put together a trail plan is, will Sudden Valley, and do you favor reclaiming that acreage for trails?
Right, but we also have a responsibility on the financial side. Like part of the long range planning is also determining how do we pay for it? Are we going to be able, you know, if it's so unrealistic, like the community, you know, you could want like an amusement park or something. It doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? So those are part of the things that if we're going to recommend it, we need to make sure, again, that it's sustainable and that it's not a burden onto the community. It's enhancing their lives, not harming it. So we'd have to, you know, those are the things. We don't just want to answer for them to say, yes, we want this connected trail system, because we need more detail, because we know we can't afford a connected trail system, not in the sense of we don't have $8 or $10 million to build out a connected trail system, but we do have the ability to plan a phased build out and determine what those priorities are, right?
You're not going to build it without the acreage. Sorry to interrupt, Adam.
I didn't see his hand up, so I'm glad.
I'm just thinking about this from a little bit more of a, I guess, a consultant side of things, and as far as when I heard that there was actually, you know, they were putting some money into putting together a trail plan, I was like, I'm pretty excited about that, because we don't know that it's going to be $1 million or $10 million until an actual assessment and plan is done. And yes, you know, it's going to revolve around community wants and needs, but I think you know, those have been made clear, like you said, year after year. That is one of the top wants of the community is interconnected trails, safer side street, you know, I mean, there's the whole list of things, but we can throw them all against the wall and kind of come up with some ideas. But that's, to me, that seems like the whole driving force of spending 30 grand at this point to, you know, at some point to put together a good trail plan and have an actual cost estimates and budgets as to what is needed to be done. So then we can make those decisions that, okay, we can't do this, this, and this, because again, we can sit here and say, oh, it's gonna cost $10 million, but nobody knows that for sure.
Right.
Until, you know, I mean, it's like we have a saying in my work that is the juice worth the squeeze, and that we more relate that to, we have a certain level of projects, you know, of a dollar amount of projects, that it has to either be a really good client or a really important project that will get us more projects if we're going to dip below that level as far as even putting together the effort to get the job, because we have to, you know, to make $5 grand, it costs us $6 grand. And, you know, I mean, it's like, so
So maybe the thing is that we could potentially use the survey to actually answer that too, to get community support of should the board move forward with spending the 32,000 or whatever it is to do the preliminary, utilize impact plan, because part of that plan was also for impact to come out and do focus input from the community and everything. That was part of that plan, was to actually spend time and gather feedback. And as you know, Impact very familiar with Southern Valley, and so that's kind of why it was determined it was too costly at this point. Was based on initial feedback from Impact, but that's also because they were looking at the full plan up front. And so just from seeing the roads plan and everything, Impact is really easy to work with when we explain to them what our needs are, and they work within they do the strategy. That's exactly how we work the roads and the drainage this last year. And so I think it's definitely doable, and I think it's either something that we as a committee could determine we want to go ahead and recommend to the board to just move forward with it, or we could put it, as part of the survey, to get support of the community. That's something we could think about this week, and then decide on that at the next meeting. I see Nancy making faces at me.
Not just swallowing my tea.
I mean, does that sound reasonable to everybody? Or Adam, what are your thoughts on that?
Which Adam?
Yeah,
Oh, Adam,
yeah,
sorry.
we have two. I'm usually known as the other Adam, but I don't know if Adam, you wanna take that role or no.
Other Adam.
I mean, so Impact is the consultant firm that would be hired to. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've seen their work with the road report, but I haven't seen their name on it or anything. But and I don't know. I'm still leaning on that and I was part of Parks and Trails and stuff, and it's like there's a whole bunch of us that are really passionate about parks and trails, and we can come up with all these ideas, but there is a limit to where we're just a bunch of volunteers working by by an oil lamp in the dark versus somebody that actually has the skill set and has gotten the job professionally to do what needs to be done.
Okay. So I think me personally, so what I really, since AJ's not here, what I think is I'm hearing what you're saying, and it appears to me that what you're saying, that's something that probably doesn't even need to go on the survey. That's probably something that we should just go ahead and recommend to the board that we'd like to see happen. And if that's the case, then at our next meeting, when AJ's here, then we could take a full vote on that and just make the recommendation. There's nothing to stop us from doing that. That's actually part of our job, right, as long range planning. And I think that's fine. I just don't want to take a vote on something like that without him being here. Not that I feel pretty confident he thinks just like you, but I just feel like he should be here.
I agree that he should have input on it as well, just because he has a very unique perspective of it from. He and I work on the opposite sides of the counter, you could say. So I've worked my life in the private sector. He's worked majority of his career in the public sector, very much in the same realm of type of stuff, but the perspective is very different. And I always enjoy hearing the perspective from from the agencies versus, and I'm sure they enjoy hearing the perspective from the consultants, because we're having to deal with each other's stuff all the time. And so I agree with that I think that's a good recommendation, but it is something that we should heavily, we should weigh a little, make sure we have all the information before making a recommendation.
Okay. So are we kind of all in agreement that maybe we can via email put some of these, questions or categories together for the survey? We'll meet again on the 1st. But meanwhile, we can also kind of be, because again, I think we're all feeling that same thing of how much, we want a commitment from the board of how much support we're going to get. so that we don't cross that line and waste our time, right? And I think that that's a fair thing. And so maybe that's something that we consider drafting up along with, that we talk to the board about that, and put it forward in front of the board that we need, that the bylaws are very clear about what we're responsible for, but it does not mean that, just like Adam's saying, we can, we can just say, this is what we recommend, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't mean we have to do all of it. Somebody needs to find out what the real use is of our amenity. Do we want to document that? Or are we just going to say, somebody on staff really needs to start, getting the use numbers and, whatever it is. You see what I'm saying? We can make a determination of how far we want to take each of these, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think if we can break down those categories and volunteer, each one of us, maybe we tag team on a couple of categories and then we share amongst each other. I would get the thing about the board out of your head for now and just, you're going to know yourself as volunteering for something where your threshold is on, what time you want to spend, regardless of, what kind of support. I will tell you on the last survey, the members who were involved in it on the board got hit with a lot of negative feedback just about, you guys aren't professional survey people. I'm sorry, but we are, volunteers and we're going to be asking questions as members of this community. So, I wouldn't let any of that worry you or the board worry you. And I would just focus on trying to come up with stuff that you would want to know or that you feel good about asking other people. And not everything's going to be like some kind of astronomically political question or anything like that. I mean, there's still stuff that just the basic things. But yeah, I think if we could get those categories set, that would be a good first step. And I've been slowly getting questions myself of things that I want to ask about. And I would say, like on Nancy's question, I think that's all a great idea to get the county thing, but I would want to make sure that we have some kind of um resolve for that. Like, you can ask someone, hey, do you want a bridge here? It's either yes or no. Obviously we're going to have to pay for a bridge, but you start asking questions about the county and the way county does things. Like yeah, I'd like to see my money go towards Sudden Valley, but what do I need to do in order to do that? A yes or no answer from me doesn't really give me much more to work on as a member that can make any change. So I think we need to make sure that we have some kind of backup to questions like that. Does that make sense? Like at least some kind of like where you can take an initiative somewhere or you have somewhere to turn to gather like, okay, like if you're going to deal with a question like that, you might have to petition the county for something or this or that. This is the process. I don't want to put something out there that's just impossible.
No, yeah, but
Josh, I
go
want to
ahead.
raise awareness.
Okay.
Most people just don't know that exists. And by asking a question that's okay, maybe an over the top will raise awareness. That's what I'm after there.
Okay. Well, jumping off of that, it might be good to have some questions that are like, did you know type of things. That maybe don't lead to some kind of action, but that could give us some insight on what to tell the community, like what Adam was talking about the Lake Louise Road and stuff like that. Or like, do you know why, you pay this amount for your sewer or this or whatever every couple months? It might be some good questions like that so that the community can, or the association can send out emails and educate people a little bit more on some of these things that they might
Or
not know.
yeah, or would you attend if Lake Wacom Water and Sewer came out, whatever, twice a year or whatever, and spoke with the community and, in a Q&A or whatever, would you be interested in attending things like that, that that kind of hit both your points, right? It's educational and informational, but it actually is resolving something, right?
Yes.
Because we're not, you're right. I mean, Adam's totally right. We don't have a voice with the county, and it's been a problem because we for, again, multiple reasons. Even when we have had somebody with a skill set to do it, it's either someone that's very politicized, or they have an actual job within the association. They don't have time to do it, you know. So it is going to take something more like that the county just starts hearing from the community in a more cohesive way, that the community cares.
I'm a bit surprised that, and there's probably reasons for it. I think it comes to where it's like, well, you know, the choice is somebody that maybe is too politicized to be the proper representation. But I'm surprised that that isn't a you know, what is it, the not board of directors, but whoever the, you know, the president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary, what is that? That's the executive. Like, I'm surprised that that is not a function of the executive
It
board
should be.
actually
It
being
would,
our representation at
Yeah.
any
So-
and every county meeting that pertains to our community. Because, as you know, I'm thinking about it as a private citizen of Sudden Valley,
Mm.
you know, that executive board, whether I voted for all of them or not, those are my elected officials. And any other community, you know, you have your council members, you have your representation of your neighborhood, of your community, and those are the people that is part of their position. We'll just call it position, that they are there. And that's, you know, to me, it just seems like that is maybe a place to start too, is why. I don't know. You know, we're asking kind of questions like,
Well,
why
I know
doesn't the board do this or
it-
that? And who knows if, you know, there's any teeth in it? But it does seem that would be that's, you know, what I feel like should be our expectation as private citizens of Sudden Valley, is that our representation, you know, is not only representing us in the community, but you are a voice of our community to the county. Until we get, you know, our own county executive or county, you know, commissioner designated for Sudden Valley, or for South, you know, or for the Lake Whatcom watershed area, or something encompassing, you know, us, that actually gives us a voice.
Right. And so I can kind of address that real quick, but I don't disagree. And again, that's a perfect example of something we need to think about, because part of our responsibility is ensuring that right policies and resolutions are in place to actually ensure the implementation of things, you know, recommendations that we're putting forward. And maybe that's something to consider, of, you know, that we actually consider a policy of who does that. I can tell you, I've lived here a decade. It used to be the board president and the vice president back when it was, you know, like Leslie and Larry. Larry, when he was not elected, there was a problem, because at that point, because there was no one else that had that level of expertise at that time to address the county. He had been doing it. So the community did not want him, right? They didn't vote for him, but that board then made him the liaison to Whatcom County. That's where it got politicized. So that it wasn't necessarily a bad idea. It was just, you know, the implementation of it, the not talking to the community, you know what I'm saying? It just happened at midnight. Nobody knew about it, kind of thing. But the reasoning behind it was exactly what you're saying, right? And so, but it never happened again, because that was so political, right? It happened in such a way where if it was a position like that was created and everyone knew it was going to be filled, you know what I'm saying? Like the expectations set properly. The Council of Governance, that it was, I believe, always the board president, or at least one of the executives, since we've been able to sit on it until AJ, because AJ is employed by the county. And so that's, so it became the GM that took over that, and it just didn't get changed. It stayed like that. So again, those are part of the problem, right? It gets lost, you know, so it'd probably be good that we actually document it and put it in writing to kind of encourage those things to get back on track, right? I think that's true. I think that's a good point. Thank you.
Maybe
Yeah.
a good one of those, like, did you know, or information gathering survey questions would be, and maybe it's an open-ended one, but how is Sudden Valley represented by, in Whatcom County? Or do you feel that your community, maybe it's just a yes or no, do you feel your community is represented well in Whatcom County? Because if we get a resounding no coming back, then there's a message right there to the board and everyone that, hey, the community feels like we're getting shafted. We should probably do something about that. It's like looking at, just going back to like looking at the trails thing. It's like, okay, we've years have gone by. Everyone every year is trails. So that maybe makes sense that, like, okay, let's quit surveying about the trails. Maybe that gets moved up to doing something about the trails. So,
Okay.
trying to, I don't know, I'm just trying, we're thinking of those questions that are going to get people's attention. That seems like a great one. Is what's your feeling about how we're served by Whatcom County? I mean, we
I
start
think
looking
that's
at
awesome, Adam.
Mhm, I do
That's
too.
brilliant.
So one other thing, and then we'll finish out this little section here. But so the board, it's not the last meeting, but the one before it, the issue of expanding the dry storage for the boats and also the RVs came up, where they were talking about wanting to do a study to utilize the airstrip for that. There was an initial conversation with the county back in 2021, I believe, where the county pretty much, the indication was that they weren't going to approve it, and it was going to take a lot of, we'd have to put the design together, do certain studies, etc. So they were asking for an initial, I think, $20-something thousand to begin the design aspect. I did ask them to throw it over to long range planning for us to make a determination about what really we should do with that. So I think in reality, I think our first step on that is to actually find out, get real information about the wait list and how many people are really, waiting. How much money are we losing in reality? Because we do know that to build an additional facility, no matter where it is going to be at least $500,000 at least, and it's more than likely $1 million, because you've got to. So let's say we use the airstrip, right? You got to go through all this county stuff. You're going to have to do the design. You're going to have to do the traffic studies and all of that. That's pretty costly. The other thing is that we don't have internet out there. So you're going to have to run, get internet. You're going to have additional security because of the security systems and everything. It will take some additional staffing, et cetera. Will we ever see the return on investment? And very likely we may not. And that's why we need the real numbers, I think, of how many people are we at, how many people are really waiting, and does it make sense for us to do that? So that's something that we are tasked with. The board already voted for us to do that. So we'll have to do that. AJ and I'll ask for that information this next week. And then the other thing I'll do is I'll resend you the stuff that breaks down kind of the categories that per the bylaws we're obligated, and how we've kind of laid them out to match the county categories under their comprehensive plans, so that we're hitting those categories. And then we can kind of start to figure out our questions and everything, and circle back around at the next meeting. But we can do all of that part via email. Does that sound reasonable to everybody? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah. On who manages the watershed, which we're in, the main organization is the Lake Whatcom Management Plan. Sudden Valley isn't in that and never will be, because it's limited to utilities or government entities, and we are neither. The only thing Sudden Valley is in is that Lake Whatcom Policy Group, which is basically a forum to ask questions. It has no power. It's just a place to ask questions. So I really don't see a road for Sun Valley to get representation. We have been very successfully boxed in as somebody's cash cow. I don't know how to get out of it. There may not be a way without maybe trying to elect a council member that cares about us. That's not a very positive assessment, but it is the way it is.
Nancy, you just made me think about something too. It's like, you know, I realize I don't even know who who represents us on the council, and it's like looking it up now. But I guess another question is, why aren't we getting an audience with that council member once a month, or I mean, face to face with our board, or somewhere to make them aware that we're here, make them aware that they know that they are representing us, we voted to put them into this position, and ask for our get it, that may be the perfect way to at least start asking for our, you want to call it a fair share or a fair representation, is why isn't the council member that is assigned to our area giving us the attention, or I mean, because in the end it doesn't matter if we're Sudden Valley or if we're Geneva or whatever, if we're all Geneva, I guess Geneva is a little, they're in a UGA, okay, Sudden Valley or Cane Lake, because we're all citizens, we should all just be considered citizens of Whatcom County that got that this person is charged with representing.
They used to show up down here when I first moved here in 2006. That little bit of activity is long gone. They'd show up around the campaign time.
Here,
But I
I'm
think
wondering
it's
if they said, well, they're fighting amongst themselves so much that we'll just let that keep going along, and we don't need to worry about, I mean, I can,
Whatever.
I'm sure
there's truth to that. I do, because they know that, yeah, and there's a lot of change, and every time there's board change or GM change, it takes people a while to catch up, and meanwhile they don't have to pay much attention to us. That's totally true.
well,
And
every 3 years, a third of the community moves out, and a third of the community moves in, and a third of the community counts, notches another 3 years on there that they've been here in Sudden Valley. And it's like we lose we lose a third of the historical knowledge, and we gain a third of a whole bunch of people that we've had neighbors that come in and they're like, what do you mean you can't paint my house purple? It's like, well, what part of you moving to an HOA with covenants and restrictions did you not understand when you paid $500,000? Like, please tell me you at least acknowledge that you're moving into an HOA. And I don't know if people, it's like, again, it's just that reinventing the wheel every 3 years with a third of the community that doesn't help us either.
Right.
yeah, and which is all the more reason that we really do, because I think what we started, with that in 2021 with that strategic planning team and that long range planning committee, I think it was really good. I think the issue is that it didn't get, it was documented, the strategic plan was documented, but policies weren't put in place, that type of thing. And I think it would be beneficial for the very reason of what you're talking about, Adam, because there's no clear cut, how do we move forward, what's the path forward, how does this happen every single year, that type of thing. And where are these records kept? I mean, it's really strange to me that so much of the history keeps being lost. It's not lost with the county, right? The county has turnover all the time too. So there's something that we're not doing correctly, right? And so those are things we need to think about of, where are the problems? Like, you remember we did that SWOT analysis in the strategic planning meeting. I mean, that's really something to consider, right? Like, why do we keep repeating this over and over? Because that's what it feels like. And that's what I'm hearing you're saying. That's what Nancy's saying. I mean, we're all like, we just did this, and now we're doing it again. And it feels like nothing, and we're not the only ones. I've heard it, I heard it from the people in 2015 and they're still saying it. And the people from 2009 that are still around are like, we put our blood, sweat, and tears into it. What happened? Now, we're still talking about trails, kind of thing. And so that's the point. How do we make these plans stick, right? And it doesn't mean that sometimes, as plans have to change based on, real life and finances and that type of thing. But there has to be something so they don't just keep getting pushed by the wayside. So those are things. And Adam, I think you and AJ and Nancy probably, especially with your experience, would be really helpful with that, of us, asking those right questions or making those right recommendations to start.
So who are we sending these questions to?
So we'll do it as
Everybody?
a group. Well, right now we'll discuss amongst ourselves what the questions are. Our team, right, the Long Range Planning Committee. We're going to meet again in 2 weeks, but the thing is, we can start these questions, we can categorize them, like Josh was saying, so that we can get it ready, and we can start drafting up these questions and figure out what's the priority, or which ones need more information, more input before we can even write them up to consider them or something, that type of thing. But that's something we can, work on in email together, and then we'll start breaking it out.
So if we have questions, we just send it to by questions, I mean, for the survey. We send it to everybody on the committee. I'm good with that. I like to know what other people are
I
thinking.
think for now, because I don't think we have a big enough picture to break it out right now. I mean, other than the county thing, that one's pretty clear cut, but there's a lot of other pieces to that. So yeah, I mean, Barbara, or you and Adam Phillips, does that sound reasonable to you?
I'm kind of out of commission for the next 3 weeks, just to warn you.
Okay, I understand.
I have to be out of town for some stuff that I don't want to be.
Okay.
I'll write a couple of questions in your honor, Barbara.
Oh, cool. Can you have my personality and direct bluntness to it? 'Cause,
I will remove all your
the board
bias.
really loves it when I was applying.
Yeah.
Josh, you
you-
can run it by me and I'll tell you if they meet the Barbara mark.
Okay.
I mean,
Just don't
Adam
say
was in the
you're
meeting
old.
with me. He knows at that strategic meeting how I asked all the hard questions. And can we talk
I
about?
think you introduced yourself as, I'm Barbara. They don't like me that much.
They're really gonna love me when I run for the board in November, and the people get to vote, because I'm pretty sure I'll get the people's vote.
So
Keep a
Adam,
good PMA.
Adam Phillips, or do you feel like that's okay that we move forward via email, and then we can kind of start really digging in and focusing on all this stuff?
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Okay. All right. So
Sonia,
what?
sorry, could we maybe do do we want to have a shared doc and kind of split this up and within that, so we can, nothing's getting lost. Maybe
Okay.
just shoot an email, say, hey, I added some, questions into this. Would someone be able to set something like that up, or?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay.
Okay.
I will
Um,
definitely try to add mine when I
Okay.
have time.
You definitely should. You have
I
good stuff to
shared
say.
doc, in what program are you?
I'll just do a Google shared doc. I'm not going to do that Outlook thing. Gets really complicated and it doesn't work right. So I'll just do a Google shared doc. That's
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
Just not a Microsoft 365.
No, I already did that with you once, so that's why
I
I was
saved
like,
those
I'm not
headaches
doing
for
it. Yeah, they get all weird, so I'll just do a plain Google thing. And okay, so the last thing is that the bylaws require that we have terms. So there's supposed to be 3 people with a 3-year term, 3 people with a 2-year term, and 3 people with a 1-year term. So right now we've got, 7 people on the committee. So I'm going to ask if there are 3 of you willing to say that they'll serve a 3-year term. If you're elected to the board or you can't continue the 3-year term, it's okay. Then the committee appoints somebody to finish out your term. But what I'd like is, if possible, 3 of you be willing to serve 3 years, and then the rest of you take the 2-year terms.
Yeah, I'll do 3.
Okay.
I can commit to 3.
Okay.
I can tell you that in 3 years, probably the handful of us will still be here. Just from having been on multiple I don't think I've ever seen anybody term out. I've seen long range planning come to a complete stop and then restart again. But with that said, I can happily say I can commit to 2.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
I need
Is that
to
your
have control
final
over,
offer?
probably near-term control over an out, just for my own needs, because I have been in here. But again, if in 3 years I'm still here, then
But he's totally right. It's just required by the bylaws, and the board is asking. We didn't even ask it the last time because we knew that that's just kind of the nature of the way the long range planning works.
I
But
think the year before we were like, well, I've already been on the 2, so I'm just on a 1, and we like did some quick math, like, okay, 3, 2, 1, 4, and we're done.
yeah, exactly. Nancy, do you want to just say 3 years? Like I said, we understand if you can't do 3 years, but I have to be able to report to the board that
Call me a 3-year.
Okay, I mean,
Unless somebody
okay.
else wants to speak up and say call him a 3-year.
All right, so we're going to call it a 3 year. So Josh, Adam Tellis, and Adam Phillips are 3-year terms. Everyone else on the committee currently is 2-year, and anyone new, because we got 3 open positions, they'll be 1 year. So there you go. All
And I'll
right.
tell you right now, because we were appointed by the board can fire all of us. That's how Robert's Rules of Order work. Forget the bylaws.
I hope they fire me. That would be
They
great.
were
Well, if I get
never,
fired, I want it in a document that I can print out and frame.
yes, yes.
Same.
I mean,
Same.
officially, a vote of the board can
So just to be
clear
clear,
the committee.
Sonia, if I run for board and I get elected on the board, hypothetically, in November, then I can't be on long range anymore?
No, they don't let they won't let more than 2 2 board members serve on long range. I don't understand that. We used to do that. There's always, in the past, there's been more than, it's whoever wanted to be on here. But they said that they spoke to the attorney and that the bylaws are written in such a way that only 2 board directors can sit on the so that's what we've been told this year. Again, long range planning does have the ability to make recommendations to change bylaws, et cetera, because there are some things even in the bylaw, the way it's written for long range planning it does need some tweaking. I personally don't think that's something that I want to deal with this year. But
I can see some reasoning behind that too, with just if someone's sitting on long range planning and they're not a board member and the other 6 people are a board member, you do feel in a very different position to disagree with the other people on your committee because, well, I'm disagreeing with these 6 people that are the board member, it's perceived power, I mean,
I don't
it's kind of
disagree.
perception. So I can kind of see why there is some logic behind limiting the amount of board members, because I think I was involved in some of those long range planning committees that had 3 or 4 board members, or spouses of or people very connected to the board, and it does create a very different feeling.
Then I think what we should do, though, there should be something that says in there, you should encourage whoever the board directors are, like if you're appointing a board director to oversee a committee, they should be the most experienced board director related to that committee. And
Absolutely.
that was the issue here, is because I was trying to volunteer for this committee and I was being told I couldn't be on the committee, and they were putting a different board director on there that had no experience with the long range planning. And I'm like, that makes no sense. Like, I have the most experience of any board director with long range planning. I don't understand why you wouldn't put me on there. And that's how all of that, came about, right? And so that's what I would hate to see. So let's say next year, as an example, if Barbara was elected and no other board director has ever been on long range planning, a board director who has been on long range planning should actually continue to be on the committee. That's how you keep the continuity, right? That's the whole point of doing the 3, 2 and 1 year terms, and that's the parts we're losing, right? To politics and stuff, and maybe we can help encourage that it's not about that, right?
Then I'm just thinking of overthinking it probably, but then there's the whole, we should never turn away a willing volunteer. So like you said, we're what, 3 people short on our committee? It's like, so do we, and let's say we've got 3 people on the board that are wanting to volunteer for it, but are now not able to. Of course, I'm basically contradicting what I just said, but it's kind of like, do we not fill committees even though we have willing people because it needs to be community members? I don't know. I'm just,
So
maybe
another option,
overcomplicating something here.
no, because again, this is something our committee, I think that we can recommend. And one of the things I did to try to overcome that, because I do believe the more buy-in we have from the board, the more support we have from the board, the better chance of us actually accomplishing any of this stuff being implemented. I actually invited all of the board to participate, open, like if they attended our meeting, which I think you guys remember Rick did, and I'm sure he'll come to some in the future and everything, but we open that up so that they can speak freely, just as if they're a member. They can't vote or anything, but at least they're there, they can hear, they can have input. And I think that, it's possible to do something like that.
I think that was one of the most productive aspects of that strategic planning meeting, was that I think we had what, 3 or 4 board members present there. I know we had Rick, we had I can't remember her name,
Lori,
and
Timey.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we were able to get some direct feedback, and we were able to utilize their experience and their knowledge in some of the discussions, because I feel like that meeting was pretty productive. I'm not it seems like maybe there's things afterwards that became less productive as far as actually doing it again, but it really, to me, those meetings are, I think that there was some value in having that many board members available to participate in the process, and help guide the process as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. So yeah, I think that's what one way to do that. So it doesn't, like what you say, prohibit community members from participating if they want to, where it's not just a repeat of a board meeting or something like that, but where we're also not discouraging board directors from being a part of it if they want to be, right? There's a way to do it. I think that would be fair to everybody, because you don't, again, you don't want it being taken over, in a certain way, but there's definitely room for improvement and everything. So, all right. Well, I bet you guys are ready to go, and I apologize. I told you I'm not great at running these meetings, so thank you for your patience. And
You did fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for
Alright.
finally getting one put together and, I know it was just a pain getting this one scheduled.
Well, I appreciate you all being here, and thanks Adam, Adam Phillips, because I know he had a busy day today too. So I know you guys that are working full time. That's a lot to squeeze this in. So thank you so much. And so I'll put that shared document together, and then we'll just start kind of brainstorming and putting some. It'll start to fall into place, I think, once we do that pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much, and we'll meet the first Thursday of next month.
All right. Thank you guys.
Bye.
I won't be there next Thursday meeting.
Okay.